Hi again, everyone, and welcome back to Farrand on Film for our final Star Wars episode. This is us talking the sequel trilogy. We've included some of the little spin-offs that came along the way as well, but we're probably not going to spend too much time on those. And we are going to end the episode with our definitive ranking of where we put each of the 9 films from the trilogies over the years. So we're going to kick off with Force Awakens. So this obviously is Star Wars: The Force Awakens, 2015, distributed by Walt Disney Studios because we're now Disney owned at this point. The film's ensemble cast includes Harrison Ford, Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, Adam Driver, Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, Lupita Nyong'o, Andy Serkis, Donald Gleason, Anthony Daniels, Peter Mayhew, and Max von Sydow. It's set 30 years after Return of the Jedi, and it follows Rey, Finn, and Poe Dameron and Han Solo's search for Luke Skywalker in their fight against the Resistance, led by Leia Organa and veterans of the Rebel Alliance, against Kylo Ren and the First Order, a successor to the Galactic Empire. The film was first announced after Disney. Let's start that one again. The film was first announced after Disney acquired Lucasfilm in October 2012. The film was it was the first Star Wars film not to extensively involve the creator George Lucas, who only served as creative consultant in the early stages of production. And then they filmed it in 2014. It premiered in 2015 and received positive reviews upon its release for acting, direction, screenplay, musical score, visual effects, editing, and action sequences, although some critics found it too similar to A New Hope. The film marked an improvement in reception of the previous 4 Star Wars films, and the film broke various box office records and became the highest grossing installment of the franchise and the highest grossing film of 2015, and is so far the 3rd highest grossing film of all time with a worldwide gross of over $2 billion. And it won numerous accolades, including 5 nominations at the Academy Awards, 4 nominations at the BAFTAs, and it won the Best Visual Effects at the BAFTAs as well. So I'm just going to kind of kick us off on this one, and I think, to be honest, we're going to be relatively short and sweet with this. I really like this. I think it's a mix of a modern blockbuster with that Star Wars allure. And the only thing I would change, and tell me if you agree with this or if you don't agree with this, the only thing I would change about this film is I wouldn't signpost Kylo Ren being Han and Leia's son quite as early as they do, because I think there would be much more heft in a reveal of we see Kylo Ren walking over like a corridor type thing, and Han Solo comes into shot and just shouts Ben. And at that point, you go, oh my God, he's just called him Ben. What's this about? And then you get the conversation of like, yeah, I'm your dad. Like, what's going on here? And then he kills Han Solo. And I just think there would have been much more in that rather than the original reveal. But as I have said, I love this. I think it's great. I like everything about it. Admittedly, there's a little bit of fan service in it, especially the bit where Rey and Finn are running away on Jakku, and they go, "Oh, just go to that ship over there," and then there's a big pan, and all of a sudden the Millennium Falcon's there, which is quite funny. But actually, there's just an awful lot of this that I like. I think the pacing's great. I think the villains are great. I like the stuff with Kylo Ren and the Knights of Ren and the kind of tease that you get of that. Aesthetically, I think it's really good. Admittedly, there was a point in the cinema where Amy, my wife, when Kylo Ren took his helmet off, she went, "Oh, put it back on," because it was like he was a bit baby faced than what you imagined. But yeah, I really like this. Ollie.
Yeah, I do love this one. I actually disagree with the idea that it can be a bit fan servicey. I think it needed to be after the prequels. And the thing that this is not my favorite of the Star Wars film, but it's probably it might be the one that impresses me the most in that it had to appeal to new Star Wars fans, casual Star Wars fans, and diehard Star Wars fans. It had to appeal to 3 very, very different, and even maybe people who hadn't seen Star Wars before at all. So there's some very, very different people that this film needed to appeal to. I think it hits the sweet spot of appealing to all those people absolutely perfectly. I have 2 little changes I would make, 3 because I do agree with yours. And I wouldn't mind getting Holly's opinion on one of them, so I might save that one for later, because the first one is a minor change that I think could... I wouldn't have blown up Starkiller Base. I'd have crippled it. So I'd have knocked it out of commission for a bit, and then there's still this pervade, because that's where you expect it to go, and that would help answer a lot of the critics of, oh, it's way too similar to A New Hope. It's just a bigger Death Star, right? So if they just knock it out for a bit, but it's repairable, and then the Resistance are working against a bit of a clock, and it's like, oh well, we've still got that to deal with. We can't just... It's not gone away. It's still there. So you've still got that as a bit of a threat. I would have kept that. The one I want to run by Holly is Rey and Mary Sue.
I was expecting the phrase Mary Sue. Hit me with it.
Yeah, is she? Because it might be a bit of a harmful... I don't know if it's like a harmful, but it's very apparent she doesn't really need help. And I think it's almost gone too far, because it almost makes it to the point where Finn is a bit of an extraneous character. And I feel like there could have been... There's plenty of opportunities for maybe her to be in a bit of trouble and Finn to just help her out, because she does that plenty of times for him, and it could be that good back and forth. And she instantly discovers that she has Force abilities, and she it's kind of a cool scene. I do like that on a whim she just tries to mind trick Daniel Craig Stormtrooper, and it works. But it is a bit like, oh yeah, she can just do that apparently. Like, I have no I really like where Kylo's trying to break her mind, and then he can't, because she's just so raw in the Force. But the idea that she can then channel that so quickly is a bit, nah, I don't know. And what's your take on that?
No, I think the substantive points make sense. I think using the phrase Mary Sue is probably not the way to go, simply because... Is there a male version of a Mary Sue? If there's a phrase for a male version of a Mary Sue, I'm happy to use the phrase Mary Sue, but I don't think that there is. I do think your criticisms make sense. The reason why I didn't think it was a problem when I watched Force Awakens was I assumed that when we got Rey's background, we would learn that she'd had some training.
Yeah.
And that through trauma or through the age that she was at,
she was
when
like a
she
hidden
had
Jedi,
she forgot that she'd been training.
Like Fallen Order.
Yeah, if that had happened, if she'd been trained by Luke, if she'd been in that camp where he was trying to rebuild the Jedi, and then when Kylo attempted to kill him and brought the whole thing down, she was like scurried away by her parents, and that's why she was left on Jakku. I think all of the things that she's able to do in The Force Awakens would make absolute sense.
Yeah, that'd be quite good, that. I think
so that's one of the things I would change. I think without that background, the fact that she can do all those things, when we've been told that Luke really needed training, and when we've been told that Anakin really needed training, like he really wasn't able to do anything before his Jedi training apart from, have heightened reflexes.
Yeah.
And what was Luke able to do before his training? He wasn't able to do anything.
It was similar. He was just a really good pilot, and you saw it.
Yeah, so that makes Rey very, very unique.
There is a bit
that is a problem.
There is a bit of mystery boxing that I'm not a big fan of, and I think this does really exemplify some of the problems that we're going to get later. Is that JJ made this big deal of who are Rey's parents. You didn't care who Luke's parents were. We didn't need to care about this now. I don't think this should have been a mystery that they maybe put any hype on, because I think
it's certainly something to talk about when we talk about the next film.
Exactly.
Because we'll all have feelings on whether that was handled well or not.
But these are just minor points. I watched this in the cinema, tears streaming down my face, because I was like, this is everything I've wanted from a Star Wars film that I've not seen before. The adventure is there. The plot has gone back to being so goddamn simple. There is a MacGuffin, but both of us are trying to get to there's nothing wrong with that in a sci-fi setting. When you've got this complicated world around you, there's nothing wrong with a simple, even cliched at this point plot. And the acting is really, really earnest. It's incredible from everyone. I really like the balance of established stars versus new talent, because that's what the original Star Wars, I think, did really well, is all these all the main characters are these new stars that you've not really heard of before, but then you've got some established actors like Alec Guinness, Peter Cushing in there. And then now you've got something similar. Daisy Ridley, John Boyega hadn't really done all that much in terms of mainstream before. They had plenty good acting. You know, I mean, I know John Boyega had done Attack the Block, but he wasn't a household name. Oscar Isaacs was a bit higher up, but then you've got like your Mark Hamills, your Carrie Fishers, and they're used properly. They're not the focus of the story. They're background characters to supplement this new generation. And I think that balance was struck so well. This is such an impressive film. Like, I don't have this. Agree. Yeah, I don't have the same affinity for it as I do for some of the original trilogy. But it's a damn good film, this one. And I think a lot of, like, you do get the odd person who's like, oh, this isn't as good as the prequels. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? This is in every way a better film than any of the prequels.
I think this echoes everything we said in the last podcast about the prequel trilogy, that when you're not enjoying a film, you're tempted to nitpick. And when you start nitpicking, you end up picking the entire thing apart. I am sure there are many, many things to nitpick about Force Awakens. One or two of them are in my head. As you just said, Rey's ability straight away, perhaps a bit much. The other one thing I would change is that they suddenly humanize the stormtroopers for us and then dehumanize them again immediately, because Finn is suddenly a wonderful character, and I love his character in the first film. And we hear that they're all children, they're stolen, they're trained. And then he immediately goes and starts shooting them when he needs to. That was a shame, I think. But that really is the only nitpicky thing that I cared about when I watched it the first time, because just as you said, I sat there and I loved it. It just felt exactly like a Star Wars film should feel to me. It felt just like A New Hope. It was all of the acting, the word you used, earnest, it absolutely was. I loved every character. I thought the acting was great. Everyone was there under the exact same premise of what they were doing. I felt, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was great.
The thing that made it so different for me was Finn as a stormtrooper taking his helmet off.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, this is they're going down a different route of this straight away, you know. But the thing that solidifies my kind of, I suppose, love for it and my affinity for it is my reaction to it afterwards. So I'd gone to watch it with me and my best mates and like our partners and stuff. As like the six of us who do, you know, games nights and whatever. And it was either the day after, actually probably was the day after. So we went on a Thursday night. I think it was like opening night. And then on a Friday, we all used to go and do a pub quiz. So like my mate went home and whatever. He came back round the night after. And I said to him, on Monday, are you busy? And he went, no. He said, why? What's up? I said, because I really want to go and watch Force Awakens again. And he went, yeah, so do I. And like we'd not had the conversation about it, but we'd thought exactly the same thing. And we went back on Monday and we watched it again. And that very few and far between happens where like as soon as I come out of a cinema, I go, I want to go and watch that again.
Yeah.
You know.
I did
and
that.
That's
actually.
Exactly what it was. Yeah.
I did do that actually. That was one of the few films I'd done that for. Is I went to watch it with Georgia, bawled like a baby pretty much the entire time because it was like, this is my childhood. And then went to see it with some of my mates from like way back when in school. I hadn't seen them in ages, and we were all just kind of got talking and on Facebook or whatever, and we just said, do you want to go watch Force Awakens? Because some of them hadn't seen it, some of them had, and I was like, oh, I've seen it. Oh, you haven't, you haven't. And we kind of sat on one side being like, oh, this is going to be great. Should we look at them? Hey! Like loving their reactions. I
was living abroad when it came out, and we were coming home for Christmas. And so it was the big event that we were going to have Christmas break. My partner and I don't have Christmas together. We go to our separate families. So the first week of us being at home, we're at our separate families, just texting like, have you booked the tickets for Force Awakens yet? And the first day we spent the second week together, the first day we went to see Force Awakens together, and it was brilliant.
Do you guys remember seeing the trailer for the first time as well?
Yes.
Yeah. That really made me excited to see it. It was a good like build up for that film, and I felt, I'm not a fan of J.J. Abrams, but that aside, I felt like this feels like it's going to be good. It feels like it's in the right direction just from the marketing.
I just thought JJ doing it was the right fit and like the best person to do it, I think, because I think that he'd, not to kind of do a disservice on the Star Trek films, he got his experience through doing the Star Trek films and obviously through Lost and like Super 8 and things like that. And I just thought if anyone was going to do it who had the right, again, I suppose, experience of doing similar films, it was J.J. Abrams.
But it is also that parallel of it's a beloved franchise that hasn't been touched in a while. He's coming, giving it that modern take, but still staying very loyal and true to the original. I really like that first Star Trek film because I think it is that really. It's really good at appealing to the original Star Trek fan, like proper Trekkies, but also a new crowd who couldn't kind of access Star Trek because it is quite cerebral and it is quite slow paced. I think it did a really good job of that, and I think that film at least was quite well received. And I think with that kind of logic, he was the only choice to reboot Star Wars. Because I thought if he does a similar thing with Star Wars, I'll be really happy. He did a similar thing with Star Wars, and I was really happy. So,
because Mark Kermode's mentioned this quite similar to a different film when he reviewed Blade Runner 2049. He said the sigh is a sigh of relief that we are in good hands. And I feel like that exactly is what happened with Star Wars. Is that like as soon as you were probably like 5 minutes in, 10 minutes in, you just thought, actually, they've got this, you know. And then unfortunately, it kind of falls away a little bit, I think. So just before we get on to Last Jedi, just to briefly mention Rogue One, which I think is a great film, actually. I quite like Rogue One.
I like the last third of it.
Okay, fair enough.
The opening bit's a bit boring and messed up, but then you get that space battle, which is epic, and then that Darth Vader scene. If for my favorite bit, I'm allowed to pick a single scene, which I'm not going to cop out and do, it would be that him wrecking everyone in the corridor, because that
I think that's the best bit of Vader,
ever. Like, it's so good. Holly's muted again.
That's like the third time. I've never done that in any of the podcasts before. And that's the third time so far. I really liked Rogue One just for the fact that, you know, the rebels aren't this great, good, moral whole all the time. I thought that was clever. That was interesting. I want more of that in Star Wars.
Definitely.
I didn't love everything about the film. It wouldn't be in my top 3 favorite Star Warsy things, but I thought it was solid, and bits of it were really interesting.
Yeah, same. But we are going to kind of gloss over that because we are here just to talk about the main trilogies and films and things like that. So here we go with The Last Jedi. So this was 2017, pretty much all the cast returning apart from Han Solo, who had met his demise previously. Introductions here, we get characters played by Gwendolyn Christie, Kelly Marie Tran, Laura Dern, and Benicio del Toro. The Last Jedi follows Rey as she seeks the aid of Luke Skywalker in the hopes of turning the tide for the Resistance in the fight against Kylo Ren and the First Order, while Leia, Finn, and Poe Dameron attempt to escape a First Order attack on the dwindling Resistance fleet. It features a posthumous performance by Carrie Fisher, who died in 2016, and the film is dedicated to her. It was obviously part of the new trilogy, and this one was directed by Rian Johnson, who had previously done things like Looper and Brick. It premiered in 2017. December 9th, 2017 was released in the United States on December 15th. It grossed over 1.3 billion worldwide and was the highest grossing film of 2017. It received positive reviews with the praise for the ensemble cast, musical score, visual effects, action sequences, and emotional weight. And it received 4 nominations at the Oscars, including Best Original Score and Best Visual Effects. Right. I like the aesthetic. I like the way that it looks. The sequence with the sand towards the end and the red smoke and all that kind of business with the X-Wings, I like that. I like some of the set pieces. Right. I think there's a lot wrong with it. I don't like Luke's whole introduction at the beginning of the film. I think it's a little bit strange, but fine. I don't like the whole subplot of Finn's going to go to a casino. I think that's absolute pants, and I think you've ruined everything that you did with Finn in the first one with that. And this is where I'm bringing up Mary Poppins, because what I mean by that is when she gets sucked out of the spaceship and all of a sudden goes, "I'm back in again." You later. I think that's ridiculous.
Do you think as
Absolutely
well,
ridiculous.
when you were watching that in the cinema, knowing that Carrie Fisher had died, did you think that was how they were killing her off?
Yeah, I did. Because I thought, right, they've made a decision here, and probably it might not be the last footage that they've got of her, but it's probably one of the last points where they thought, actually, this makes sense. So we'll do this and we'll fix things in reshoots. But then actually what happens is that she stops and just zooms away back into the ship. And it was really like, I really wanted to like this. I really, really wanted to like this because I like Rian Johnson. And there were just like, I think I have only seen this the once, and I think it's testament to maybe the fact that I've just mentioned for Force Awakens, in that as soon as I came out of Force Awakens, I wanted to go and watch it again, and my mate did the same thing. As soon as I came out of this, I was just like, well, that was disappointing, wasn't it? And I don't think I've seen it again.
Does it help in like a band-aid way? I'm like, Holly, feel free to agree or disagree with me here. In my case, I fully acknowledge that this has a lot of flaws in it. Some like, and not just some like, oh, but you're nitpicking. There are some things quite fundamentally wrong with this. And the annoying thing is they are pretty easy fixes, a lot of them, in my opinion. And I think it's, but also because they're easy fixes, I think I can reconcile them a lot more. It's not like with Phantom Menace where you're like the fix is to rewrite the entire
the foundation
script.
was rotten.
Yeah, whereas here it's a bit of the script is just a bit of a fixer-upper, basically. Like, because
the whole lightsaber fight between Luke and Kylo, and the fact that Luke's actually not there.
That was stunning. I'm sorry, that's one of my favorite moments in the film because they hinted at it being a possibility through the kind of force projection thing, and even if you don't accept that someone will be able to do that, you can't then complain about how they've treated Luke. Oh, that's not my Luke Skywalker. He wouldn't do that. Which I'm not saying you're doing, but that was a lot of criticism.
No, because I mean, I'm not going to ever go that deep into going, this is what a character can and can't do.
Exactly. And it's just like, well, why wouldn't he be able to do that? He's one of the strongest Jedi, if not the strongest Jedi to ever have existed. So maybe he's the only person who can figure this out. And like, I thought that was real. And I even remember thinking that I was being stupid at the time because I didn't pick up on things that I'd usually pick up on. The fact that he looks a lot neater in that scene, the fact that he's got his blue lightsaber, I was like, oh, that's a continuity error at that point. And it's like, no, this is how everyone remembers him. And this is the image that he's projecting of himself. And like, oh, just like, I love Luke in this film. He is my favorite part of this film. The way he's been browbeaten and he's so cynical and he hates the universe and everything like that. There's a cut scene that I wish they included where he just goes into his hut and like slowly comes to terms with the news that Han Solo has died. Because you don't get that moment in the film. Like he goes into his hut, he sits down, he kind of gets into almost a praying position and he just looks slightly off center from camera and he's got tears in his eyes. It's this quick, like less than a minute scene that they've caught. And it's a real shame because like Luke didn't get to say goodbye to his best friend, which I find a massive... I will wholeheartedly agree with you on the casino stuff. The only because it's similar to the pod race in that there's a really good moment in leading up to this that they clearly just couldn't figure out how to get to, and the good moment is Finn and Rose, I think she's called, being pointed out to them that weapons like arms dealers are supplying the First Order and the Resistance. So the Resistance aren't as nice and clear cut as you think they are. So that's a really nice little scene of like, you know, you're being very naive here, Finn. But the fact that the only way they could get DJ on the ship was to go to this, like that entire casino bit, you could just cut. They should almost just be going straight onto the Mega Star Destroyer, which, side note, one of my favorite designs ever. I didn't think we'd get cooler than the Super Star Destroyer in terms of ships. And you've just got this like 100-kilometer wide triangle coming at you, and it's like, yes, that's so cool. Another criticism I hear is like, why didn't Laura Dern's character, Admiral Holdo, keep Poe in the loop? And that's why Poe ends up kind of acting out. And it's like, I think the book mentions a spy, and you could have had it where they go straight on and it's this spy on the rebel ship that's ratting them out, and she doesn't know if it's Poe because he's a hothead and he keeps doing things that actually hurt the alliance. Like little fixes like this, I think, fix a lot of fundamental problems people have. Rey and Kylo Ren's relationship in this is the thing that I love about this film. I think it's really it's something we haven't seen in Star Wars before, that kind of hints at a romantic relationship between the hero and the villain. And it's not forced, it's not awkward at this point. It is two people who've grown up in very specific situations, and that like it's like we're kind of the only people who could understand what the other person's going through. So of course we're going to connect over that, and of course this kind of mind link that we've got over that is going to bring us a bit closer together, and the other person's going to try and tempt the other. It's that heartbreaking moment where Kylo Ren extends his hand and is almost like, "Be my queen." Like he doesn't actually say that.
I wanted her to say yes, 100%. I don't know why, because I obviously want the good guys to win. But in that moment, I was just like, "Say yes, girl. Say yes. Say yes."
And her face where she's heartbroken. It's like, don't do this.
But then when she says no, I'm glad, because then it's interesting. But in that moment, I was like, "Oh my God, I'd say yes. I think I'd say yes."
It doesn't even have to be romantic, though. That's the thing. And I think that's the balance that it gets right in this one, but then doesn't in Rise of Skywalker.
Agreed.
Because the whole thing that you've just mentioned, Ollie, of these are two people who are so similar, and actually the only person that they can talk to about what they are feeling is each other, because it's so similar.
Yeah.
And like, it doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. That was just the undertone to it. And actually, Rise of Skywalker took that as that. Rise of Skywalker may as well be slash fiction, like with the way that it ends up going.
I think if you were going to have a romantic partner for Rey, though, which there's plenty of arguments as to be like, well, why does she need one? Luke didn't have one, but I think Luke would have had one if they got the original thing where Han Solo falls in love with his actual sister, who isn't Leia. I think Luke and Leia would have been a couple. But like, if you are going to have a romantic relationship, I think theirs would be the most interesting. And I wouldn't have minded them exploring that properly, rather than we'll talk about it later. Like, I think that would have been a good romantic relationship to have explored, or like potential romantic relationship to explore. Because like Rey and Finn just hug a lot, and like Finn's clearly interested in Rey, and Rey.
Yeah, I never really thought there would be a Rey and Finn thing. I never
they
really
hint at a Rey and Poe thing at the end, and that's quite cutesy.
The look that launched 1,000 fanfics.
Yeah, Daisy Ridley's eyes on the photo, because it is Oscar Isaac. He's a beautiful man. It's like, I know who.
Well, I mean, there was a whole thing. I think it was a Twitter thing where it was
Finn and Poe.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Which fine. Like we wouldn't have seen it before, but
they
fine.
swapped jackets. That's a nice trait.
Whose jacket? But yeah, the stuff. I think it's not the best lightsaber fight. I mean, I love the one at the end because it's really, really nice, and it brings that line that Luke says. Everything in that sentence was completely wrong. I love the way that he repeats that, but it means something completely different now. Like, it's great. But I do love that action sequence in Snoke's throne room.
That's what I was about to say.
It's a great action sequence. And you see all these weapons like that are kind of similar, and we're back to, it's not, because you get like a couple of people who are like into their sword fighting. It's like, oh, if he did this, he'd get stabbed there. And it's like, it's not the point though. Kylo Ren is an angry dude, but he is very powerful. So he is wiping out these fools for fun with pure rage and not much pizzazz. Rey is holding her own a bit, but she's not got much experience with a lightsaber. So she's not very good at it, but she does hold her own because she is a powerful force user. I do like, and you might have a problem with this, Adam, I do like that this, and we kind of hinted at it before, Rian Johnson thought, well, JJ's built up a lot of mysteries in this. Who is Snoke? Who are Rey's parents? What is this all building to? And I think ultimately, if he'd kind of even put it on the tracks to any particular theory, there's going to be fan backlash. I think JJ really did paint people into a corner with those decisions of who is Snoke. why do you care who Snoke is? You weren't asking who Palpatine was in Return of the Jedi. You just knew he was the Emperor and that was it. Snoke's the leader of the First Order. What else do you need to know, really? Who are Rey's parents? Why is that important at all? You didn't care about who...
It comes back to an issue that we've kind of skirted around a little bit of how are you plotting out this story?
Yeah.
And I think I don't think anyone will say, well, they'll probably say it, but I think they're lying. I don't think anyone actually plotted out this trilogy. I don't think anyone said this is the plan for the second film, because they look like three individual films with the elements of kind of strings being held over across, you know, and like, oh, that happened in that one, so how do we do this one? Because the biggest issue between this and Rise of Skywalker, other than the whole Kylo Ren Rey thing, is there's a Rose issue, because don't introduce a new character here and get me to like this character and look forward to see what she's going to do in the next one, just to drop her in the next one.
I'll talk about that when we talk about Rise of Skywalker.
So many. Yeah, there's so many things like that that we have to talk about when we get to Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, I don't think it does, because I did like Rose, and yeah, she was done dirty.
Last Jedi is one of those films that on paper I absolutely love. I think it did the very clever thing that Empire did, which is after the happy children's adventure film that makes everyone feel good, you take an absolute sledgehammer to them. I think that's clever and risky, and I like that. I think it fails in some key areas in ways that Empire doesn't, which is why Empire did that much better.
Yeah,
but if they'd made a second film, which was essentially, Return of the Jedi, but this time the second film rather than the third one, I would not have been happy with that. I am happier with The Last Jedi than I would have been another happy adventure film. I think it's interesting. I think it fails in some places, but an interesting failure is much, much more interesting every single time than a mediocre success. There are so many great things, but Ollie's, already said it. I think we have very, very similar views on this film, Ollie. I love everything about Rey's relationship with Ben. I love the way they reveal slowly to us that they can see each other, because I didn't get that at the beginning. It just sounded like they could hear each other. And Rian Johnson really slowly shows us this. It's maybe in the third vision that they have together that you finally realize that they're looking into each other's rooms. I think that's clever. And
when she sees him shirtless,
she's like, put a shirt on. I really like the thing you've both alluded to. There could be romantic subtext, but there doesn't need to be, and it walks that line really, really well, allowing the filmmaker for film 3 to decide where they want to go with that. I thought that was great. I love Luke in this film, because you are never expecting him to throw the lightsaber over his shoulder and be a crotchety old git, and the fact that he is brilliant. It just completely blasts my expectations out of the window. I thought that was wonderful. I love his ending where he does turn up and he looks like the hero again, because in his mind that's what he wants to be, and what's needed in that moment, and how everyone else sees him, but it's not quite who he is. The aesthetics, I completely agree with you, Adam. I think they're great. They're ice. Anything that's got some kind of fox in it.
Little crystal foxes,
of the year. You've got me, guys, with the crystal foxes, but the salt flats with the red powder throwing up, I thought it was great.
And that's a little hint as well, because Luke doesn't leave any footprints the way that everyone else does.
Exactly, yeah. Ben smashing up his mask. I thought that was a really great moment, because we are, after the first one, when we hit almost all of the same beats as A New Hope, you're expecting him to become Darth Vader, and then he smashes up his helmet because he's a petulant child, and he's been told by his master that he's not good enough. I really loved that. There are so many great bits, but it's just killed completely for me by that stupid casino nonsense.
Yeah, the casino
Yeah.
bit is just, it's pointless.
Awful. Finn
It's pointless.
and Rose was done so dirty because I think they're
Mhm.
great characters. Finn is one of my favorite things in the first one. It's so interesting to have a stormtrooper turn, and they do nothing with him in the second film. It's such a shame. Put
And
him
there's a lot-
straight on the destroyer immediately and have fun there.
Yeah, there's a lot of theories as well that it's because his character wasn't that well received in China, is something I've heard. So they dumbed down. Like, I feel like that is something, and it becomes way more apparent in the next film. I think quite toxic elements of the Star Wars fan base really negatively affected this, and the way they reacted to this with the ownership they seem to feel entitled to over the character of Luke. Like the idea that, oh well, you know, you're telling me that in Return of Jedi, he'd be so sure that he's not going to kill Darth Vader because he knows he can save him, but then when it's his own nephew, he wouldn't do the same. It's like, yeah, people have moments of doubt. Like that's and little things like that just. I think it's made me like this film more. I've almost got a bit defensive over this film
I'm the same.
because other than Adam, and like other than Adam, I've not heard anyone really air any proper grievances with this film that don't just paint that person as a toxic fan.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like that. I think that's why I get my back up so much about this film, because it's like, no, it's just you being a bad person who thinks you're entitled to it. This isn't your thing. This is someone with a creative vision about it. You're angry. You're telling me that like these same people are angry. It's like Rey should have been a Kenobi. I thought Rey should have been a Kenobi personally. I thought that would have been a nice little parallel. If you're going to give us the mystery of who her parents were, make her a Kenobi. I really like that. But Rian Johnson turning around and making Kylo Ren say, your parents were no one. You're not special. And that idea of, yeah, your bloodline doesn't make you special. Your actions do. Like, that is a great message that, again, there's the window for the next film.
Those two things. Who's Snoke? Don't care. Who are Rey's parents? Don't care. Love it. Love it, because I was like everyone else. I was trying to work out who they would be, and just being told doesn't matter. I think that's such a ballsy move.
Yeah.
I love Rian Johnson for that. I think it's great. And then undone completely.
Well, just before we get there,
Sorry, very quick, because there was another point I wanted to raise actually, and I get why they didn't quite do it, because Leia's death could have been, she's the one that drives the ship into the Mega Star Destroyer. Like, what a way to go! That's how Princess Leia would go if if you're gonna like that. But I do understand. Actually, like I thought, oh, she could have gone then. Oh, but then she wouldn't have had that scene with Luke. And I think that scene with Luke needed to happen, because like Luke didn't get to say goodbye to Han Solo, and that's bad enough. The idea that if Luke's going to die in this, he doesn't say goodbye for Leia is, like, for me, that is unthinkable. And that scene between the two of them was just so sweet, especially with the knowledge as well that Carrie Fisher had died. Like, that scene was the bit that really made me well up, was like Mark Hamill just kissing her on the forehead and, you know, going out and doing his hero thing. Like, French kiss.
I was just going to say, before we forget, bit of a shout for a really solid Donald Gleason performance all the way through these films.
Yeah, actually. I think he's done a bit dirty in this, actually. I think he's a really good secondary villain in the previous film, and they do make him a bit of a joke in this one. And it's
the one thing that does confuse me, though, is that we go from, so not Donald Gleason, we go from, God, what's his name? Adrian Edmondson in this one to Richard E. Grant in the next one. Just because it's like, let's have different generals for whatever reason. Anyway. Right, so before we get into Rise of Skywalker, just to mention Solo, which I think was fine. It was very fan servicey, because it was like, oh, you've seen this thing that Han has, or this thing that Han did, or this thing that, you know, so is it like 14 parsecs? And
it's fine. I like the casting, especially Donald Glover as Lando. I really like that.
Yeah, that was good. But yeah, that was generally fine. Right, Rise of Skywalker. Okay. Right.
Dun,
So
dun, dun.
2019. I remember this being like a big kind of just before the pandemic big watch that I did with my mates.
Yes.
Probably the last thing I did actually with my mates before.
Yeah.
This. So, yeah, everyone's back. Yeah, everyone's back. Billy D. Williams is back in this one as well.
Even Harrison Ford's back in this one.
Harrison Ford's in this back, and he died in the other one. Rise of Skywalker follows Rey, Finn, and Poe Dameron as they lead the Resistance's final stand against Kylo Ren and the First Order, who are aided by the return of deceased Galactic Emperor Palpatine. Following initial reports that the Last Jedi director Rian Johnson would write the script, Colin Trevorrow was hired to direct and write the script.
Called Duel of the Fates as well. That was the original name for it.
With Derek Connolly. Both ultimately retained story credits with Abrams and Chris Terrio. Trevorrow left the project following creative differences, and he was then replaced by J.J. Abrams, who was back to direct this. And I think, to be honest, that told us everything we needed to know, because the production was just a bit of a mess.
Yeah.
So it was released in December of 2019. It received mixed reviews from critics who praised the acting, action sequences, musical score, and visual effects, but criticized the story, the pacing, and the perceived departures from the plot and the themes of The Last Jedi. It grossed just over $1 billion worldwide, and it was the lowest grossing installment of the trilogy, and it received a couple of Oscar nominations here and there. Right, I've written two things here. One of them is what a load of dog do.
Yeah.
And the second one is I've referred to it as the end game ending, but since I did my Harry Potter podcast with Tom, we referred to it as the Order of the Phoenix ending, where the Order all pop up. It's like, boom, we're here. I was fully now, right, I will say this because I'm obviously aware of this. Endgame and Rise of Skywalker's productions will have overlapped. So me calling it the Endgame ending does Rise of Skywalker a little bit of a disservice. What I mean by this is the Endgame ending of the portal's opening, everyone's back, here we go, the S is about to hit the fan, right? Everything's going to kick off. Love it, absolutely love it. But with this one, you get a kind of, we're all in, we're all ready, we need a little bit of help. All of a sudden, all these other fighter jets turn out, and it's extra A, extra B, extra C, extra D, extra E. And I'm like, I would have been well on board with like an old Jar Jar Binks being in one of these X-Wings rather than random pilot A and random pilot B.
Yeah.
I thought there would have been much more gravitas to that end sequence.
Endgame brings back a bunch of characters that you have had films and time to deeply care about. And when you see them again, it's like, that guy. Like the most you get with that in this ending is like there's ships that show up from the expanded universe and from other bits of like main canon Star Wars media, which again, I've said, like you shouldn't have to do homework to go and watch these films and for it to fully hit you. Like I don't mind the odd little Easter egg or something like that. Like if there's like a really I don't know, obscure Star Wars reference of a ship that they just put in the background. If like Slave One, like Boba Fett's ship just happens to be in the background for any fun or whatever. Yeah, that'd be really funny. But yeah, just this.
So we mentioned this before about a film that you really like and a film that you really hate and a film that's just meh. I don't really feel anything about this.
I'm the opposite.
I'm kind of angry at this one.
Yeah. So I mean, admittedly, it made me angry because I was looking forward to it and all that kind of stuff. There was a scene again. I've not watched this back, but it was on the other night and I stuck it on. Where Rey and Finn have a bit of a fight, and Finn stabs, not Rey and Finn, Kylo and Rey have a bit of a fight, and she stabs him with a lightsaber, and he kind of falls down. And then she magics his wound back and things like that. Now, that might come under the category of, well, we've not seen a Jedi do this before. Does that mean that a Jedi can do it, that you mentioned before, Ollie?
Baby Yoda does
daft.
it.
Yeah, little
Grogu fair enough. Yeah, but we'd not seen that at that point.
We hadn't, but at least within the world now it's.
But it's just a lot of the same people. A lot of the same people who were complaining about Luke being able to project himself did not have that same energy when this random healing power just showed up.
Yeah, and then the whole, I remember being in the cinema with my mates and Kylo Ren's looking off into the distance, and I was just going, it's going to be Han Solo, and it's going to be Han Solo, and it's going to be Han Solo, and then he turns around and Han Solo's there, and I'm like,
I don't mind that because it would have been Carrie Fisher if she was still alive.
yeah,
Like it would have been like, I think that's the only reason, because Harrison Ford hated Star Wars, and I think the only reason he agreed to do The Force Awakens is because he was guaranteed that they would be killing him off towards the end of it. I also think he wouldn't have agreed to do this scene were it not for the fact that Carrie had died. I think JJ will have gone to him and said, look, we did want Carrie to be the vision that he sees at this point because it's more in keeping with the themes. We obviously can't do that. We've not got the footage, and we don't want to try and do that janky, like fake face, deep fake thing. Would you mind just coming and doing this one scene? And I think for Carrie, he wanted to do it. So I don't have too much of a problem with that, because I think it was I can imagine it's almost out of necessity.
So I will say this: my bigger issues with it are, I don't think you need Palpatine. I don't know why we brought Palpatine back.
Nonsense.
Pure fan service.
Nonsense.
Yeah,
and he's great. I enjoy him. I enjoy him when he's on screen, but
this is the thing, we've said over these podcasts that Ian McDiarmid has probably the best performances out of a lot of them.
Yeah.
But here we don't need you, because we're past that point. We don't need this trilogy, this new story, to have that overarching thing from the other ones. And the whole of them kissing, come on, like no, don't do that. We don't need this to be a romantic thing. You know, like we've just mentioned, I was happy for the ambiguity of, we need each other because we're the only ones who understand each other. You don't need to make that into a, like, you can just imagine someone writing the script, can't you? And just writing in the center, the words, they kiss, full stop. And it's just like, no, we don't need it. We really don't need
Credit
it.
to them, though. I think they do, with their acting there, I think they do sell it. Like, from a story perspective, it doesn't fit, but they act it well. Like, I do really like Adam Driver's acting when he's like thrown away his Kylo Ren moniker and he becomes Ben Solo again. Like, I really like his facial expressions and everything in that, and and even there's a little call, like one of my favorite things in it is when he gets the lightsaber out in front of the Knights of Ren and he does that little shrug, and it's a callback to when Han Solo did the shrug on Endor in Return of the Jedi.
But you can tell how much of a rushed production this was, and how badly things went to pot, because it has that really splurgy, horrid, grungy CGI ending where they'd not thought about the set design of how it was going to end. So it's just this weird blue kind of like, oh, we're in a mountain thing. And anyway, I'll let you guys go for a bit.
It's just each of these Star Destroyers is a planet killer. It's just, we get it. They've got planet killer. Like, this is why I thought the pervasive threat of Star Killer Base throughout the whole thing would have been better. And just...
I think this film is the embodiment of not having the courage of your convictions.
100%.
Maybe it's not the writers and the director of this film's convictions, they're Rian Johnson's, but they're now set in stone because that film has happened. So you need to ride out the story that you've got. You cannot retcon everything you didn't like one film ago. It made me angry. It made me angry in the cinema. Now, I'm just a person who watches films. I don't really have much right to be angry about a piece of media. If I don't like it, I just don't like it and move on. But Star Wars is quite special, and I didn't get angry with the prequels. I think they're terrible. They're probably worse than this film. But this one I hate it. Yeah. I hate it. It's so cynical. It's so backpedaling. It's so, what did we do wrong, in quotation marks, in the second film that people got angry on the internet about?
It's fan appeasing. The whole thing is trying to appease the fans who
we don't deserve to be appeased. You know,
it's not ours.
Service your vision, and we can decide if we like it or not. But it felt like a film made by committee. And I don't think I've ever felt like that about a Star Wars film before. Even the ones that were a little more cynical, it was still someone's vision. It
was George Lucas's vision completely, wasn't it?
Vision. Yeah. It wasn't good, but it didn't make me angry. And this one so did. It was rubbish, even down to things that don't matter, like the fact that the three central characters, Rey, Finn, and in this one, Poe, who had, you know, those little tiny hints of relationships. Is it friendly? Could there be a romance? It was all very platonic, really, and it was all very wholesome. But just because some people are angry that people ship Poe and Finn, or some people are a bit angry that Rey and Finn might be considered a possible couple, they have to make these kind of appropriate romances for them. So there has to be a woman of color who Finn can suddenly be a bit flirty with, and there has to be an age appropriate woman, because Poe is straight for him to be kind of flirting with.
God.
I just no.
And
don't give us any romances. That's absolutely fine. But I don't care about these people that you've just ballooned into this film just to put me off the scent of a relationship.
That idea,
you perhaps
though,
think about there being
of it being made by committee is because it was made by committee, because something happened where Colin Trevorrow went, I don't want to make a film like that, and that's why he left the thing. And Disney just went, right, well, we're going to get JJ in as a fixer, and he's going to fix the end of it. And he's going to
listen to every toxic fan opinion and try and please them all, and in the end, probably annoy.
Well, it's not even that he's going to listen to every toxic fan opinion. He's going to listen to a producer that's listened to the toxic fan opinion and then gone, this is what we need to put in this film.
I think the only scene I really liked at all in this is the lightsaber fight between Rey and Kylo when the ship's in orbit, and it's kind of like that, you know, they're using their kind of projection abilities to fight, and that's when Kylo's like, oh, you're on the ship. That's the only scene. But even then, like, the worst, like the prequels, as Holly kind of alluded to, are the worst films. But I can think of a moment in each, even Attack of the Clones, I can think of moments in that film where I'm like, oh, that was great, that. So, like, the Duel of the Fates and the pod race in Phantom Menace, the fight between Obi-Wan and Jango in Attack of the Clones, and the arena fight scene where they've not got their lightsabers, because that's a big criticism for all the prequels, is that they use the lightsabers way too much, and it's boring. They're superheroes. And then Revenge of the Sith's got loads of really good moments in it. And, like, even with you don't like Return of the Jedi and you don't like Last Jedi, but I'm sure you can think of some moments in both of those films where you're like, yeah, that bit was good, actually. Like, I don't like the film.
You know, like the speed thing, and
I don't like the film, but that bit was really good. If the rest of the film was more like that, there's nothing really redeemable in this film. There's no moment in this film I look on and I go, oh, that bit was good, though.
I will push back against that. I think I feel that more for the prequels. Like I said, when you were talking about the prequels and you kept saying, I love that bit, I love that bit.
Fair.
I have none of that feeling about any of the prequels. When you were just naming parts, like the fight between Obi-Wan and Jango and stuff, I remember it so vaguely as just a thing that happened. I can't remember one shot. I can't remember one moment. I just remember that it happened. There are things in this film that I liked and thought, I love that. The moment where Ben takes the lightsaber from behind his back because Rey has force projected it into his hands when she needed it to fight. I really like that. That's a continuation of this new power that we've seen them using, and I think it's clever. But because there are moments that, or even moment, I'm only thinking of one now, but because there are just a few bits, I like the characters better. There's some sparky dialogue with Poe that I quite like. That makes me hate the rest of it more. Because there's potential. The potential came from the films before.
Yes.
Again, the foundation isn't rotten, but the film they built on it is. Whereas the prequels, I just think they were poorly conceived from the start.
And Rose.
So I'm less angry with them, but they're less memorable to me.
Fair enough.
I will never watch the prequels again. I don't.
Okay.
unless I have children and I'm introducing them to Star Wars and I think it's important for them to see the prequels, I don't think I ever will think that. I think I'll only show them the originals and then they can do what they like. But I don't think I will ever watch the prequels again. I'll hate watch this film again.
See, this is the only film I've not been able to bring myself to watch again. And we kind of alluded to it before as well. Rose. Because of the backlash she got off of the back of... because of the backlash...
Snack delivery.
Because of the backlash she got off of the back of Last Jedi, a lot of it was just vile, racist abuse, frankly. She's barely in this film. And you can't help but feel like that is a result of all these people being horrific to
and they really did a dirty with it.
Yeah, really dirty. Like, she could have been a really fundamental character in this still, and she just wasn't, because why?
Like, I do wonder, would we have noticed it as much if she just wasn't in it?
Yeah.
Like, if they just decided not to put that character in it, or is it the fact that they've put her in it a little bit, but not as much as she was in before?
I think I came into it wanting to see her have a strong part.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Because I do think she was done a little bit wrong in Last. Like her character was a bit annoying in Last Jedi, but it's like she acted it well. It's one of those, like, it's these idiots conflate, like, abusing actors because they don't like characters they play. And and those are the kind of people I'm thinking of who just didn't like Last Jedi, and they're I blame those people for Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, I do as well.
Like
100%.
this terrible film is a result of you being childish and really, really being vile online and saying that your opinions are right and anybody who disagrees with you isn't a proper Star Wars fan. This is what you get for trying to gatekeep this fandom and not want anything to change.
Yeah, I lost not a friend, a friendly colleague. And a friendly ex-colleague is now an enemy online of mine because of his reaction to The Last Jedi. He posted something that was like a list of all the characters in The Last Jedi in order of how good they were. And it was all the male characters, then all of the female characters. And then he went on a gigantic rant about how The Last Jedi was just social justice warrior nonsense, putting all the women to the fore. And I was just like, who are you? It's nothing to do with gender.
Wow.
What are you talking about, you absolute nonsense merchant? And we haven't really spoken.
What a pillock.
But what a shame to learn that about a person that you quite liked.
And now, anyway, right. What we'll do then is I'm going to just go through some stuff that has been announced as upcoming, and then we will do our rankings. So, Rogue Squadron. So, Lucasfilm has a number of Star Wars films in development, 2 of which were confirmed during the Disney Investor Day in 2020. The first will be a film titled Rogue Squadron, which is being directed by Patty Jenkins and scheduled for release not next year, 2023. The second, which I'm sure me and Holly are looking forward to, is the unspecified film from Taika, who in May 2020 was announced to be directing a Star Wars film. He is co-writing with Christy Wilson-Cairns.
So excited.
It'll be great, won't it? There is a Rian Johnson trilogy that is being produced independent of the Skywalker saga and is being written by him and directed by him as well.
Is he still doing that?
Apparently so.
Okay, good. I'm looking forward to that. This
is, as of Wikipedia, yesterday. So, and then a couple of others. So there's a film announced to be in development from director J.D. Dillard. Nothing really more on that. And that apparently Kathleen Kennedy and Kevin Feige are going to collaborate to develop a Star Wars film. So that's, probably Marvel-esque. Whatever they want to do there. So, ranking time. So what I'm going to do, and I did this on the Harry Potter podcast.
We haven't done our favourite things yet.
Do you want to do that first? Should we do that first? I
don't mind which way round.
We'll do that first. Right, so favourite things then. So basically, what we said is, we're going to just basically reveal what our favourite Star Wars thing is. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a film. It doesn't have to be anything that we've spoken about already, but kind of to allude to spin-offs and other developments that have happened. What is our favourite Star Wars thing? So mine is The Mandalorian, which I think everyone is familiar with now. It's a show on Disney Plus. Admittedly, I've only seen this recently, so I did it over Christmas, I think it was. And it was even my sister, who isn't necessarily a big Star Wars fan, said to me, "You need to get on and watch Mando because Mando's really great."
I was nagging you as well.
Oh no, you probably did as well, but it was my sister. My sister
But he
was
doesn't
somebody
listen
else
to
who did
you,
it.
Ollie.
Yeah, well, no, this is it. Ollie said something to me today. I don't know what it was. Yeah, so she texted me and she said, "Oh, you should really watch it because you'd enjoy it." And with things like that, I get really kind of like, oh, we're 2 seasons in, the hype's all around it. Because I remember seeing all the Baby Yoda stuff, and that kind of bothered me because it was like all these people who've never bothered about Star Wars before, just because there's a Baby Yoda in it, which isn't even Baby Yoda. That's
cute, though.
Yeah, but it's like, oh, that's become more of a thing. So eventually, when I watched it, I thought, you know what? Yeah, I'll give it a go. And I know I did. I really enjoyed it, and I just did like episode after episode after episode. I think Pedro Pascal is fantastic as Mando. I just think, and I said this to you guys separately last week when we were in school, that I think the reason why I like it is because it's not bothered about the good versus the bad. It's more like Mando will be there because he sees the benefit of it. He's not on the good side. He's not on the bad side, but he'll help out because, he's been asked to, or because, it's the way.
Bill Burr in that, because
Yeah.
Bill Burr, for anyone who doesn't know who's listening, is a stand-up comedian. He's quite abrasive as a human being, and he's just generally quite angry. And he's openly mocked Star Wars in the past and how much he hates Star Wars. But then he was offered to be in it, and I think I won't go into too much detail because Holly hasn't watched it.
I've seen that episode, unless he comes back.
He comes back, and his second showing, it's genuinely some of the best acting I've ever, like him like Adam will recognize it, him in like sat down opposite an Imperial officer. It's some stunning acting, and it really does. He's a great character for highlighting. We've been treating this universe as very black and white for really long, and there are people on the ground on every single planet who don't care who's in charge of them. They're just trying to get on with their lives. And if it's not a military dictatorship, it's a criminal empire. If it's not them, it's some justice warriors who are a bit too lax, and like the Republic, like it really gets away from that. Oh, everything's good, everything's bad. Like the universe seems to have gone to pot in Mando, and I kind of love it. Like it's so bleak, and
there's a couple of great throwbacks in it as well, and I'll kind of talk around them, not to try and spoil anything. But the Tamara Morrison throwback, I think, is great.
Yes. Oh.
Yeah. And what was the other one that
I just like the visual throwbacks. It looks so much like the first film.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Definitely. Like the little eye that pops out of the door. It's like originally like straight from the original trilogy. All the aliens that are on the spit that he's cooking on the spit is the little guy in
the little
Jabba's.
Yeah.
It just looks and feels exactly as I wanted it.
It was just the when it was out, my mate watched it and he told me he was somebody else who said, "Oh, I think you should watch it." I said, "Oh, is it Boba Fett then?" And he said, "No." And I hadn't really kind of considered that there was this thing of a Mandalorian and there was more of them and things like that. So again, I like that idea of it. Holly, then, what's your favorite thing?
Yeah, it feels weird talking about it again because this is a conversation I've had with you several times already, but obviously not on a podcast. So my favorite Star Wars thing by a million miles is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, either 1 or 2. The first game was made by BioWare. It's an RPG, PC game. Actually, I played it on the Xbox, but I have it for PC now. It's quite a Star Warsy story, the first one. We have Jedi, we have Sith, but the character that you're playing can be either Jedi or Sith or somewhere in the middle, and you still play out the same story, but you can absolutely be evil. And I think it's one of the things I cite when people don't know really what computer gaming is. I'm a massive gamer, and I'm always having people say, "You're in your 30s, mate. Come on, like, what is gaming? Are you just playing FIFA? What are you doing?" And when I try and explain what an RPG is, the type of game that I like, I always go to Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic and explain one of the very first things that you do, which is you walk past a beggar in the street and he's being hounded by 3 men. And in that moment, you can be the best Jedi possible. You can speak to the men and make them leave through diplomacy, and then give the man sitting on the floor money. You can also kill them, the men who are heckling him, then kill the man and take all the money that he's collected from other people. And you can do literally everything in between that you can imagine. You can join up with the hecklers, get the money off the beggar, and then beat them up and take all their money. You can just walk straight past. You can give them money to make them leave, and then just say, thanks, mate, bye-bye, to the guy who's sitting on the floor. All of these moral questions are there and possible. In the first game, they're there, but they're not explored massively. There's an amazing twist, better than Luke, I am your father. It is spectacular.
It kind of, like, I should be offended, but it kind of is.
Yeah, it's so good. I screamed my head off when I got to that bit. But the second game blows Star Wars like completely away, and it makes the Jedi the bad guys. They don't become Sith. They're still Jedi. They have their code, but they're the bad guys because they're so inflexible that any change away from the Jedi code pushes people to become Sith. Because in their mind, if they've trained as a Jedi, if you do anything wrong, you're going towards the dark side. So what's stopping them going all the way if you've taught them that? And that becomes the message of the whole second game, which is the grey area is where everybody should be, because the light is just as oppressive and awful as the dark. And it's so good. And I kind of wish The Last Jedi had been that, because when in the trailer, when you see Luke saying the Jedi should die, I got
for the Jedi
chills
to end, yeah.
because I was like, it's Knights of the Old Republic 2. Oh my God. And they don't go there. And they completely wheel it back in the third one. But that game is so good.
Yeah, I'm not wrong, am I? When you played Ghost of Tsushima, do you get similar vibes?
Yeah, definitely. I haven't played it. I've seen people play it on Switch. But yeah.
It's just that idea of a rigid code.
Can you pick something?
I don't know. There's loads of good ones. Like going back, like the games I played, like I loved Bounty Hunter, where you play as Jango Fett. I loved Force Unleashed. The first one was great. Fallen Order is a more modern one. That's a really good game, actually. Like, it's the first really good Star Wars game in a long time. It is a bit of a cop-out. I think I've just got to go Empire. I think I can't, as much as I do love the games, I love being able to like wield a lightsaber and be in there and stuff. Like Empire just grabs me in every time. The themes in there, like all of these excellent things that we're talking about. And I know the argument could be like, well, hang on, they start with A New Hope. It's like, yeah, but like in terms of like really delving into this and like proper heavy thematic stuff, you can't look past Empire. I just don't think you can.
No.
Like that's the catalyst for every amazing thing that goes on. Because I've not played Knights of the Old Republic, because big RPGs like that just do intimidate me. I don't like that much choice in the game. I quite like a little bit of linearity with some leeway on how you like develop your character or something like that. I don't like it. I just do find it a bit, I'm a bit like, oh, well, I'll have to go back and play it the other way now. And like, you'd have to play it millions of times to get every eventual outcome, wouldn't you? Like, I recognize Knights of the Old Republic as probably objectively the best bit of Star Wars media that's ever been put out there. But unless I can count the Lego, Star Wars Lego would probably be my favorite thing as well. I want a Death Star at some point in my life.
It's so expensive.
It is. Oh my God. I remember when it used to be. I went to Disneyland when I was 12 and I got a set of 4 TIE fighters for $100. So I got 2 normal TIE fighters. I got Darth Vader's, V1 TIE fighter with like the curved wings from episode 4. And then I got a droid TIE fighter, which didn't appear in any of the films. All of that for $100. One TIE fighter these days. Like, I've got a little one here. I'm going to get him. I'm going to show you.
He's going to get him.
I'm going to get him. Here he is. This is from, I think it's Star Wars Rebels. So he's a little bit shorter than the rest of them. This costs 40 quid.
Wow.
And like the other TIE fighters are just way bigger than this. And it's just, I'm really annoyed that.
Lego is insanely expensive because I did the Friends set last summer. That cost me 50 quid. Amy got me the Stranger Things set, and that was 200 quid for Christmas. Yeah. I've just done a London one that I got for my birthday. I think that was 40 quid. Yeah, it's ridiculous. Anyway,
Yes.
right, rankings then. So this is where I try and do maths really quick as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to go 9-1, okay?
Yep.
Now, the way that we're going to score it is the thing that you put at number 9 gets 1 point, all the way up to the thing that you put at number 1 getting 9 points. And then we're going to come up with a joint list, okay? Right, so my number 9, so the worst of the lot, Rise of Skywalker. Ollie?
Rise of Skywalker.
Okay. Holly?
Rise of Skywalker.
Easy.
Can we quickly? I know it's got 3 points. Can we just say it gets 0 though?
Yeah, let's give it 0.
It doesn't deserve a point. I really like your scoring system, Adam. I think it works, but I think just for this one, it gets 0.
Okay. Well, yeah, we'll say that because it won't make any difference to anything anyway.
It does. Yeah. If anything, we need to take points from it.
Right. Now we're getting into territory where things aren't going to be agreed.
I think the next
my
one.
number, my number 8, Return of the Jedi.
Oh, nah.
I spoke too soon.
My God.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Holly, your number 8.
Attack of the Clones.
Okay. Holly.
Attack of the Clones.
Okay.
Because
fair
I'm
enough.
right.
Because she's right. Oh, right. So my number 7 is Attack of the Clones. Ollie?
Phantom Menace.
Wow, that's really low.
Mm-hmm.
That's much lower than I expected.
It's a bad film. I love it, but it is a bad film.
Holly?
Phantom Menace.
Wow. That's really surprised me. You're not going to like where I've put it.
He's put Phantom Menace at like 2, I bet.
Right. So I've just done, so I've done number 7. Right. Number 6. My number 6 is The Last Jedi. Ollie?
Revenge of the Sith.
Okay. Holly?
Revenge of the Sith.
Wow.
Ollie, do you want me to just message you my list and you can
You've
know
really
if
just
if it's
completely scuppered my list. Right. My number 5 is A New Hope.
Ooh.
Right. Ollie, 5.
Return of the Jedi.
Return of the Jedi, number 5. Okay. Holly.
The Last Jedi.
Okay. Intriguing. My number 4 is Phantom Menace. Ollie?
Last Jedi.
Last Jedi. So that gives that. Okay. Holly, you're number 4?
Return of the Jedi.
Okay.
So we just.
I was
Me and
genuinely
Ollie
like
have
that
just
on
swapped
those
those
two.
around.
Yeah, you've swapped a couple of things on there. Right. My number 3 is Empire Strikes Back.
Boo!
So Holly?
Force Awakens.
Force Awakens, number 3. So that would give it. Oh my God, I've lost my counting. Oh my days, I've lost my points. That would give it that many points. Would it? Yeah, that many points.
7
So
points.
where are you? 7 points. Thanks for paying attention, because I'm not. Ollie?
Force Awakens.
Oh, dearie. Right, so that gives it that many altogether.
Right, so Force Awakens has 23 in total because you put it.
Shush your feet, you're spoiling the list. Holly shouts at me for doing this.
I do. You do.
I actually, and I figured this was going to happen. I need to swap to my laptop speakers rather than my earphones because my earphones have just lost charge. That's how long we've been talking for.
In the dying moments.
In the dying moments of this podcast. Right, so let's sort that out. Right, okay. So my number 2 is Revenge of the Sith.
Wolf.
Ollie, your number 2?
New Hope.
New Hope. So that gets it that many. Holly?
New Hope.
Okay. So you two have pretty much just been in agreement.
Yeah, all we did was swap 4 and 5 around.
And I nearly did the other way, which I'm willing to bet you were kind of umming and ahhing between as well.
I was.
Right. So my number 1 is Force Awakens, which means
Oh my god!
that your number
What
1.
a shock!
What a shock.
What's more sarcastically shocking? Adam's number 1 or mine?
Well, it's never yours, is it? Why would it
Number
be yours?
1, Empire Strikes Back, Mr. Farrand.
Fancy that. And Holly is exactly the same.
Yeah, fancy me and Holly putting the best film at
correct
number 1.
Number 1.
It's weird that.
Right. So quick maths.
Whilst you're totting up, the only question I'm going to ask is, do we think there's any chance? Because Empire Strikes Back did not get a great critical reception at the time. Is there a chance that we think Last Jedi becomes more beloved with time?
No, I don't think so, because I think Last Jedi got a good critical reception immediately. It got a bad fan reception, which is different, and I think that's gonna stick. I also think, and we haven't spoken about this before, talking about cynical and blah blah blah. As much as I liked The Force Awakens, the entire sequel trilogy, when I think about it, doesn't need to exist.
No.
And I will be quite strong in that view, that I would very happily have gone on without that trilogy and instead just Rogue One and Solo and
Mandalorian,
the Mandalorian. The ending should, for me, the happy ending is at the end of the Empire. I don't need a rehash of the Empire. They did a good job with the first one, but I don't think they did enough with the entire trilogy to
warrant its
justify.
existence.
Which again is a big thing to say, and it's not my place. But the entire thing was a bit redundant for me.
Okay. I don't think I can disagree with this too much, to be honest. In 9th place is Rise of Skywalker.
Oh my god.
In 8th place is Attack of the Clones.
Mm-hmm.
In joint 6th place is Return of the Jedi and the Phantom Menace.
Okay.
In 5th place is The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
4th, Revenge of the Sith. 3, A New Hope. 2, Force Awakens. 1, Empire Strikes Back.
That's really not that far from my list.
So yeah.
Like I could have actually quite happily switched Force Awakens and New Hope as well, but I thought like the nostalgia of New Hope, and it has got that perfect ending. And as much as I love Force Awakens, it is a bit of a rehash of New Hope. So
I disagree. I have quite a big gulf between New Hope and Force Awakens there. I've got 1, 2, 3, and then the rest underneath.
Yeah.
So I'm glad. I've got
Empire's at top.
Force Awakens.
Democracy, people.
Your allegiance is to the Republic, to democracy.
we haven't put space janitors anywhere on this list, which is obviously the best thing that's ever happened to do with Star Wars. It's not officially Star Wars affiliated, but Death Star Canteen. Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's the best Star Wars thing that's ever happened. Oh
dear.
The Super NES games.
Yeah. Right, well, thank you both very much. I'm sure you've appreciated it and enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun.
Right, let's wrap this up then. So that's pretty much it. What we're going to do next week is what Ollie and I are recording tomorrow. Holly's decided to bow out of this one because she feels like she's mentioned a lot of her favourite films before.
No one needs to hear about Lagan for
500.
You never know. Basically, Sam and I were texting a couple of weeks ago because we were both watching the same film, and we both went, "Why have we never done this?" So we've realised that we've never done a top 10 of our all-time top 10 favourite films. So that's what we're recording tomorrow, and is going to come your way next week and the week after as part of 2 parts. Ollie's going to give the same feigned shocked expression when I reveal my number 1 tomorrow.
As is Adam when I reveal mine.
Yes. So in the meantime, you can help support Farrand on Film by following us on Twitter at Farrand on Film, by liking us on Facebook at facebook.com/Farrand on Film, heading over to our sponsor, Offworld Tees, and using the code Farrand for 15% off your order. I'm wearing my actual, my most recent Offworld Tees, which is my dead parrot Monty Python sketch. Which is basically just, it goes down a list of all the reasons why that parrot is dead. And leaving a 5-star review at your favorite podcast provider. Stay safe, look after each other, and we will see you next time.